there is a camp, an eagle camp through broadband that is on an eagle's nest in the Hutchinson area. And this spring there were 2 chicks in that nest. And I want to tell you a little bit about the nest, the story of the nest and the chicks in there. Unfortunately, one of the chicks did not survive, but they still had a second chick in there. A lot of people were watching. The second chick's name was Harmon. He was named that. And one night, a lot of people noticed that he looked to be stuck. Based off of what we saw and knowing a little bit about history of nests and eagles, one theory was that he might have been stuck in fishing line. Bald eagles, they do hunt fish. That's the main prey they catch. And a lot of times if a line breaks, that fish is tired, injured, they can be caught by eagles. They'll be taken back to the nest to feed the young with, and that fishing line can end up in an eagle's nest, or they grab a stick that's got the fishing line caught on it. So there can be a couple options. We couldn't really tell how he was stuck, but kind of worrying about that it was a human cause of him being stuck also had us a little extra concerned. So when he was stuck, we got lots of calls about it, and at first, we didn't know anything. We knew that there was an eagle cam, because, you know, we got lots of followers that like to keep track of stuff, but we didn't know where the nest was, who really it was connected to, anything like that. We soon found out that information and talked with them about him being stuck and decided that we wanted to take it to the next step and see if there is a chance that we might need to intervene. Well, we take a lot into consideration before we intervene in a nest situation. A lot goes into it. The safety of the chicks that are in the nest, either the one that we're concerned about, or if there are other ones in there, the age of them. If they get to a certain age, they're considered jumpers. They could just flee and actually hurt themselves more. So sometimes, depending on the age of the chicks, we're not able to act. The reason or cause of concern, and also permit issues. We actually don't give permits for being involved with birds. We ourselves have permits in order to work with birds, have them in our education department, work with them in our clinic. And so we had to contact the DNR and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So once we figured that we might want to intervene in this situation, we contacted them, talked to their specialists. It was a working partnership in order to get emergency permits to be involved in this situation. So there's a lot, you have to talk to a lot of knowledgeable people before you can even consider being involved and intervening, and sometimes it's not the best situation. In this situation, we figured it was. We got these emergency permits to go in the nest and look. So we sent one of our climbers. He actually went up in a big boom truck up into the nest, and the first thing was just to take into consideration the situation. Most likely this bird was stuck, so our first hope was that we could just kind of unstick him and he gets out of there and that would be it. Unfortunately, the bird was under quite a bit of stress just from being stuck and then kind of us going up there too, and he was really dehydrated and he needed medical attention. So our Raptor Center person decided to go ahead and get a hold of him, bring him to our center, and we gave him emergency care, gave him some food. He was quite bruised, very stressed out. We got liquids in him, gave him some food, gave him a calm place, fully gave him an exam to make sure there weren't any broken bones, any other issues, and luckily he bounced back pretty quickly. Which, if you're younger, you know that happens a lot more frequently than if you're older, so we were pretty happy about that. But it still did take about 48 hours for him in our clinic. And that's a long time, especially for a nest that the parents don't have any other young to take care of. So we were kind of hitting that edge of time of hoping that we still had time to get back in the nest before the parents left. Another big issue was, if any of you were watching, and you know that time of year, we had a major storm come through between when we got them and when we wanted to put them back in the nest. We had to deal with major mud. I think there are a couple branches, trees down. It was quite an ordeal to try getting the boom truck back in there to get a hold of them. So it caused even a bigger scene, kind of a bigger disturbance in the area. Between the storms, not having another chick in there, we were a little curious about if the parents would even still be hanging around. They were seen in the territory, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be going back to the nest location. But we decided, the best thing for these birds is to stay in the wild. So we got them back up in the nest, and thanks to the Eagle Camp and also a lot of people monitoring the nest, we had good eyes to see if the parents came back. After 24 hours, the parents had not returned yet. They were in the area, like I said, but they hadn't returned back to the nest, and we got concerned. Like I said, raptors, they don't need to be fed every 2 hours, at least not at that age, like some small songbirds, but they do need food. And we did not want him to be under any more additional stress. So we loaded back up, called the boom truck, and started to head back out there. And it's a pretty interesting story if you talk to a couple of the staff and volunteers that were involved, because we had 2 people in a car with binoculars. We had our climber at the boom truck waiting for directions. And then we also had a couple staff members that were, and volunteers that were watching the Eagle camps. And the ones that were watching the Eagle camps were on their phones with the people that were in the car with the binoculars, because they each got to see different things. So their whole communication back and forth was pretty neat. We were getting the boom truck kind of nearby, and all of a sudden, the people in the car noticed the eagles near the nest site. And they got excited. They told the boom truck, stop, don't make any more disturbance, wait, let's see what happens. The adults got a little closer. The people watching the Eagle cam were like, oh, the chick sees the parents, he's calling, he's hungry. And we were hoping the eagles seemed to look at the nest, notice the nest, so we decided just to wait a little bit, watch what happens. And luckily, within a relatively short amount of time, the eagles returned to the nest and then went and brought food to the nest and started feeding Harmon. So we got the boom truck onto there, we backed up, we didn't want it to cause any more disturbance there, and great success story working with all the different partners we did. And Harmon grew up to be a big, strong chick, and he fledged, I believe it was the Saturday before the 4th of July. Now when they fledge, it does mean that they take that first leap out of the nest. Some raptors don't even return to that nest again. They just land on a branch nearby, just kind of hang out in the little territory for a while. Some will return to the nest, and I think he made 1 or 2 more appearances. Oh, he still comes back occasionally? Nice. Hey, you get food there. It's hard to go away from a place you get food. But when they do fledge, the parents don't just stop taking care of them then, because they're learning how to fly, then they have to learn how to hunt. And so the parents do feed them for quite a while. They also will supplement them for quite a while until the young are fully functioning. And then it's usually a mutual agreement of the adults want to keep all the food they catch, the young are catching enough on their own, and then they kind of split up and move on their own way. And so by fall, most likely Harmon will not be returning to the nest, because they'll have to start finding food, and as our lakes and rivers freeze, eagles tend to move south, either way south or just far enough for open water, and they don't necessarily stay in their territory. Right. I know the band's still playing, but they're not in sight, so I think I'm going to go ahead and see if our last bird will come out here.